Right now, something on your wrist is writing down your life, one heartbeat at a time, and you forgot it's listening. You strap it on for the step count. You glance at it maybe twice a day, tops. It rides along quietly, the gym, the couch, the argument you'd honestly rather forget ever happened. Most days, that log means nothing. It's just noise between you and a badge that says you moved. But a heartbeat is a timestamp. Every single beat is stamped with the exact minute it happened. And a stamp like that doesn't take sides. It doesn't get nervous. It can't be talked over. This is the story of the day. One of those little logs outweighed a grown man's word. A man who had an answer for every question, except the one writing on a dead girl's wrist. Start with him, calm on the porch, telling officers exactly how his ordinary evening had gone. He'd left the house that afternoon, he said. His stepdaughter was home, alive, texting her friends. He remembered her voice. He remembered her chatting away as he grabbed his keys and drove off. It was specific. It was warm. It was the kind of detail that makes a story feel true. And for a while, it worked. Because who argues with a man that, sure of himself? His timeline was clean. His story never wobbled. On paper, he had nowhere he needed to be. An alibi like that's a locked door. You knock, it holds, and you move on. Detectives knocked. It held. The hours he described lined up with everything they could actually check. Here's the trouble with a clean story, though. It's only as clean as the witnesses agree. And every human witness here was either gone, unsure, or just repeating what he had told them. So the case sat there, airtight, the way a held breath is airtight, right up until it isn't. Because there was one witness in that house nobody had thought to sit down and interview. It wasn't a neighbor. It wasn't a camera. It was strapped to the victim's own wrist. Her fitness tracker. The kind you forget you're wearing until it buzzes you to stand up. She'd worn it that day like any other day, through breakfast, through the afternoon, through the end, and the whole time, it did the only thing it knows how to do. It counted. Steps, sure, but underneath the steps, something quieter and far harder to fake, her pulse. Every few seconds it checked. How fast is this heart beating right now? Then it saved the number. Not a summary, a minute-by-minute diary of a living body, written without her lifting a finger. Now picture that diary as a single line on a graph, rising and falling with an ordinary day. A resting heart hums along, low and even, like the fridge you stop hearing after a while. Move around, climb the stairs, laugh hard, the line jumps, sit back down, and it settles. It's the most boring chart in the world, until the exact moment it stops being boring. Because a heart under real terror doesn't do subtle, it slams, and this line, at one point, slammed. Somewhere in that quiet afternoon, her pulse spiked, up and up, far past anything a nap explains. The kind of climb a body only makes when every alarm inside it goes off at once. And then, on that same unbroken line, the numbers did something a resting heart never does. They didn't drift down to calm. They fell off a cliff. And a few minutes later, nothing. Flat, no beat to record. The diary that had written every few seconds of her day simply stopped. A tracker can't tell you what it saw, but it can tell you the exact minute it went silent. And that minute is where a man's careful story met something that couldn't be argued with. Because remember what he'd sworn, she was alive and chatting when he pulled out of the driveway. If that were true, her heart should have kept ticking long after his car was gone. The log said otherwise. It said the flatline landed while he insisted he was already miles away. If that just tightens something in your chest, that's the exact feeling this channel chases. Stick around. Now, one uncomfortable timestamp isn't proof. A tracker can glitch, a clock can drift. Defense lawyers know this. So the real question wasn't just what the wrist said, it was what else was stamped at that same minute. And here a second silent witness walks in, not on her wrist, but out in the driveway. His car. Modern cars quietly write their own diaries too, and so do the cameras a car drives past. Investigators didn't need him to confess where he'd been. They just needed the timeline to speak for itself. Phones ping towers, cars trip cameras, a door logs the moment a key first touches the lock. Each one is a tiny, dumb clock, and none of them coordinated their stories with his. Line them all up on the same afternoon, and a shape starts to appear underneath the alibi. His own trail put him at that house, in that driveway, at the minute her line went flat. Not near it, not around it, at it. The two timestamps landed right on top of each other. The man who swore he was gone while she chatted was parked there while her heart quit. That's the moment an airtight alibi springs a leak it simply can't explain away. And here's the part that unsettles people. Nobody had to catch him lying to his face. No dramatic slip, no contradiction, he blurted out. The devices never even knew he was a suspect. They just kept their boring little logs, and the logs refused to match his beautiful story. A liar can rehearse a timeline. He can smooth it, repeat it, and start to believe it himself. What he can't do is reach into a stranger's server and edit the minute a heart stopped. That's the quiet power here. The witnesses weren't people, so they had nothing to gain by bending. We think of an eyewitness as a person in a chair, pointing, saying, "I saw him do it." But memory is soft. It shifts overnight, fills its own gaps, and swears the guesses were always there. Ask two honest people about the same 5 minutes, and you'll often get two different afternoons. A heart rate log doesn't have that problem. It wasn't remembering the day. It was recording it, live. There's no story sitting between what happened and what got written, just a sensor and a clock. And that's the shift this case forced, the idea that an eyewitness doesn't have to have eyes. It can be a wristband that never blinked, keeping time while the only human witness couldn't speak. Prosecutors didn't walk in with a person who saw it. They walked in with a pulse that felt it. A jury doesn't cross-examine a heartbeat. They watch the line rise, slam, and fall on a screen. And they watch his confident timeline try to stand beside it and quietly run out of room. Think about how strange that's. The victim, in a sense, gave her very own statement. Not in words, in beats per minute. The last thing she recorded was the truth of her final minutes. The one detail her killer couldn't reach, couldn't coach, couldn't talk over, was already uploaded. He remembered to control the story. He forgot she was wearing a witness he couldn't see. That's the mistake at the heart of this. He accounted for people and ignored the machine on her arm. Because to him, it was jewelry, a step counter, background noise you stopped noticing by lunchtime. To the investigation, it was the only thing in that house telling the truth without an agenda. And once you've seen a case turn on that, you start looking at your own wrist a little differently. That gentle buzz reminding you to breathe is also very calmly keeping a record of you, where you were, when your heart raced, the minute you fell asleep, the morning you woke up scared. Most of the time, that record protects nobody and accuses nobody. It's just data drifting into a cloud. But it sits there, time-stamped and patient, completely indifferent to whether anyone ever needs it. And on the rare day someone does, it doesn't care who's asking or how the story is supposed to go. That's the real takeaway. Bigger than one tracker, the world is quietly logging the truth around us. Not to catch anyone. Just because logging is simply what these little machines do all day, every day. Which means a good story, told with total confidence, is no longer the last word it used to be. You can convince the neighbors, you can convince the family, you can almost convince yourself of it. But you can't convince a clock, and these days the room is absolutely full of clocks. For most of history, the perfect alibi was a story no living person could stand up and contradict. Now the contradiction doesn't need to be living. It just needs to have been running and stamped. That's what quietly redefined an eyewitness, from someone who watched to something that recorded. And it means the next time a story feels airtight, the question we ask has quietly changed. It's no longer only who saw you, it's what was on, nearby, and keeping time while it happened. A stepfather learned that the hard way, undone not by a person but by a wristband that never lied. She couldn't tell them what happened, so the small thing on her arm told them for her, down to the minute, long after the only voice that could accuse him had gone quiet. He silenced the witness he could see and forgot the one strapped quietly to her wrist. If quiet evidence outlasting a confident lie stays with you, that's exactly what this channel is for. Next time, the vacation photo that placed a man at a scene he swore he had never visited. Cases like this deserve to be remembered. Like and subscribe so the next one isn't forgotten.